Hello, and welcome to Life After Divorce, where we speak into how to let go, how to reinvent yourself, and create the confidence to say hello to the new you. Today, we have Leila Khan in our presence. She is an author, a public speaker, a business owner, and a coach. She really helps women manifest their dreams. She helps them heal what has been hurt, and she really supports them in many aspects of their life. So I'm happy to have you, Leila. And why don't you say hello to us and introduce yourself and tell us like how you help women and what that looks like.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Amy. You know what? I couldn't have said it better than what you just said and shared there. I'm super passionate and skilled, of course, in helping women to really step into her personal power. So I'm a personal transformation mentor, author, speaker, coach. It's what really drives me and thrive. You know, what I thrive on. That self-mastery, helping women to tap into their power and move through what I call caged stories, stories which cage us in. You know, we've all seen that image of birds in a cage, and the door is open, but they're still caged in that, in that space. And all they have to do is turn around and fly out the door. And so, cage stories is really what I help women to unravel, the stories that she's telling herself with regards to her business success, with regards to manifestation of abundance, prosperity, manifesting the love of her life, the lifestyle that she desires, and the family and so on. So it's a big, it's a big thing, personal transformation. So yeah, I bring spirituality, intuition, strategy, energetics, mindset, frequency, bringing it all in together, because that is what it really takes for a woman to be truly embodied in who she is and how she was created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is going to be a beautiful conversation, because the women who have gone through a divorce or still going through a divorce and are thinking about this new life and what it's going to look like, and how for many of us, it was like a blank slate. What is it actually going to look like? And then how do we, I think it's really about how do we create new ways of being in our new life. Mm-hmm. And I know you'd be perfect to speak into that. So tell us a little about divorce and what you see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm divorced myself. I left my ex-husband probably I think it was about 10 years ago. And it was just like 10, 12 years ago. It's one of the best decisions I ever made, but it was a really difficult one. It was a challenging one, for so many different reasons. Well, one of the main reasons why I decided to kind of break free was because of how much I had evolved and changed as a woman. We were in our early 20s when we got together, and by the time I divorced him, I was nearly 30. And in that time, we as women evolve so much, we change so much, and we go from being a young adult, a young woman, into a grown woman. And do you know what I mean? So much changes for us, and like how we see ourselves, how we see our relationships, what we want from life, what we don't want from life. And I've never been one of these people to stay stuck. If I ever feel like I'm holding myself back in any way, shape, or form, I challenge that, I test it, I move through it. I question what part of me believes that I should stay because that's safer to do, rather than be brave enough to say, I'm really not happy here. I know that there's something more, and I don't quite know what that is, but I'm willing to explore it. I'm willing to take the leap into that space, and from there, discover whatever's meant to be discovered. And so, that 10-year journey informed so much of who I am as a woman and as a human being, and my relationship to life and to living and feeling alive, and wanting to make my dreams come true, and so on. It was absolutely fantastic.
Mhm. So many of us are watching, maybe didn't want the divorce or feel guilty about the divorce
Mm.
leaving, because that's big on women too. But what do you believe the divorce, like that divorce kick-started in your life? Like tell me, like what do you believe that kick-started? Because sometimes we look at divorce as a failure instead of like a kickstart
Mhm.
to our true desires and our true lives. So you can you speak into
Yeah.
that?
So, it was really interesting. So being Muslim, there were really interesting beliefs that I came across
Mhm.
about you're not allowed to be divorced. And then also, as a woman, you're not allowed to initiate divorce. And there may be some some people watching this who may not agree. But what I did is what even just the start of the divorce kick-started for me was getting clarity on what is right and true for me from a Muslim perspective, but also what is right and true culturally as well, and what is true, right and true religiously, and what's shared. And what I found is that of course, there's a lot of distortion, a lot of language which isn't true. There are a lot of rules and ideas which have been misconstrued, or um, they've been kind of made louder in space of truth. And so I really went into this space of challenging what it meant to be the person who was saying, well, I'm done now. And it actually wasn't just me, it was a mutual thing. We were both ready, and we both knew that it was the right thing to do, to move on, because we drifted so far apart. And so it kickstarted really this quest for truth, what is right and true for me personally, with God and with my own spiritual source and connection, and then what is right and true, within community. So I was already estranged from the community, um, and I didn't have wasn't in contact with my family at the time. I think by that point I'd not seen my family or been in touch with them for about 6 or 7 years. And altogether we weren't in touch for about 14 years. Um, and so the biggest challenge for me with stepping into this divorce and stepping into the life after divorce was that for the first time in my whole entire life, it was just going to be me. There weren't going to be parents, there weren't going to be my siblings, there weren't going to be my cousins, and none of my family, which I'd already been getting used to. And then to be in that space of, okay, I'm actually now not even going to have a husband or a partner. Like, I am on my own physically. This is it. And of course, I had really good friends in London who were a great support. And I had my work, my ambition actually was a great support.
Mhm.
Um, and I knew that it was going to be me and God. And so it kick-started, you could say it kick-started this union between myself and God, and an even deeper level. It was like God was saying, do you trust me? Do
Mm.
you truly trust me to provide for you and guide you to the best life possible? And do you truly trust me to guide you to the love of your life and the person that actually is like a frequency match for you? And once I'd moved past the fears and the inner questions, which I have to say, they were going around in my head for at least 4 years,
Mhm.
possibly even longer. And I think it's really important to say as well that, most of us don't just choose divorce like that and get up and it's done. We ruminate over it, we think about it. I think for a lot of us women, we internalize it as well. We take it in, and we try and figure out a way maybe to not be divorced, and we overcompensate, and we try to make things better. And actually, sometimes we do just have to be brave enough and just say, you know what, that is the path. And so there was a whole other side, um which initiating that divorce started to open up for me.
Mhm. And I'm going to take you back to something you said, well, to your intro of having these cage stories, and then you and your own decision, which many of us, the cultural, the societal, the religious, or whatever it is, all these stories telling us for so many years who we are. They form our beliefs. They really make up this safety net of being here. And can you speak into those, like releasing those? Well, first and foremost, like the fact that they are stories, right?
Yes.
So let's speak a little bit about that. Let's get clear on that. Like,
yeah.
Like who's in the center of all that crap, right? Who's in the center? Like, okay, let's go.
So I'm definitely a storyteller, and my life is and has been a hero's journey or a heroine's journey. And I'm a writer. I've always written stories. I've always written and kind of released my emotions through writing, through some form of art, through dance, through movement, because that's what feminine energy does, right? It naturally just wants to be released. Now, for a long time, I used to repress those stories. I would keep them inside. And I would keep them inside in my body, lodged in my body by the stories that I was telling myself in my mind. To be divorced, so for example, if I get divorced, I'm going to have no one to support me. I'm going to have no one to provide for me. I mean, I've always been I've always been an independent woman. I've always paid my own bills, paid my rent, and all of that good stuff. But the story of what if someone's not there anymore? What am I going to do? I'm not going to be able to provide for myself. I'm not going to be able to take care of myself. I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do, go where I want to go. That was like one example. That's one example of a story. But the one that keeps going through my mind right now is the sense of safety. So this was actually a really big thing. I've never talked about this before. For a long time, I felt the safety of being with a man and staying with him because it was safer to have a man by my side, because the story I was playing in my mind, I'm so happy this is coming out. The story that I was playing in my mind was, oh, but I'll be vulnerable and at risk if I'm on my own and if I'm not with a man. And that played in my mind for such a long time. That was a story I really had to dive into and question, like, is it really true that I can't take care of myself if something happened? Now, just to give a little bit of context as well, I'm from London, and London is this incredible metropolis, and the whole world exists in London, and it can be a very, very intense place. And for myself, with some of the experiences that I'd had with men in London, it was really, really hard, constantly just kind of being on guard, kind of my own body language was very much like, okay, I've got to take care of myself, I've got to protect myself, I'm ready to fight, or I'm ready to stand up for myself, I'm ready to speak up and tell someone, to stop what he's doing, because inappropriate behavior and all that stuff. So this sense of safety, being kind of me taking away this sense of safety by getting divorced, was a big, big thing. And that was a caged story. And so the way that I moved through it, I really had to ask myself, sit through journaling, counseling, in particular, speaking to my friends, and looking for examples of other women who were, say, single and strong, independent, beautiful women, confident in herself, who were divorced yet happy, and so those were some of the kind of strategies that I used to get into the cage stories, which I can go into some detail, but I feel like you want to ask something there.
Yeah. So I want to get into the cage stories, and yet I want to recognize that, some women came into this marriage at 19, 20, 21, 22, and they've been married to someone for 25 years. And all of a sudden, boom, like what a huge transition. And how, like, that safety net of being in partnership is gone, even though could be a dysfunctional partnership. You know, there is that sense, like, what is that story that actually, like that cage story, that it's, you know, it's better to be with someone who, you know, almost miserable than, what is that really about? Than really being like, if you really think about it, it's like, how come the misery is winning over it is the unknown, but the possibility of you really flourishing as a woman and growing.
So it was that thing. So to answer that kind of question around that story, my vision had to become stronger, right? My vision had to become stronger than the fears. My desire for freedom had to become stronger than the trap or the cage. Yeah. My want for my own safety, for me to be able to provide for myself, my want and my desire of that had to become stronger than externalizing safety. Yeah. And it was these things that I was sitting with and challenging. It's like, in which ways am I choosing to stay unhappy? In what ways am I saying that it's better to be in a relationship than to not be in a relationship? And coming to any kind of decision is always a weighing up, isn't it? It's always a weighing up of one thing or the other. And essentially, these things are our values. What do we value? What don't we value? The woman that I was when I got married and was in that relationship had different values to the woman that I was when I decided it's time to be free. My values, my core values always stayed the same. My core values have always been freedom, unconditional love, courage, joy, success. You know, those have been some of my core values forever, and they always will be. But what happens is as we change, as we evolve through situations and scenarios and relationships, our values change, and our values are unconscious. And so that's where this kind of, you could say, this push and pull comes in. It's like, well, who am I now? Because the person I was when I got married or got into this relationship was different and was happy. But now, all these years later, I'm not actually happy and I want something else. And I don't quite know what that is, but I know that where I am right now is not it. And so in order to take that leap, I had to shift through those values, and I had to really move through you could say, the duality, and the polarity, the difference between these two worlds, in order to kind of even turn around in that cage as a little bird, you know, to turn around and see the door and to say, okay, I'm moving out, I'm done, I'm choosing my freedom. The unknown can be such a, of course it can be, I mean, we can choose. It can be really scary, or in my world, is really exciting, because there's a mystery to the unknown. And this mystery is exciting. It's like, what am I going to discover? Who am I going to be in this discovery? What am I going to learn about myself? What I'm capable of? How loving I can be? How forgiving I can be? How will my world open up? You know, it's only when we choose to move through those cage stories that we get to the point where it's like, okay, the unknown is actually more exciting and enticing than what I know right now. Because in this relationship right now, like just like pre-divorce, I'm not happy. I'm not feeling it. I'm not that same person anymore. And the vision in that space, like pre-divorce, the vision of us together didn't exist anymore. There was nothing to keep us together in the same direction. Whereas stepping out was, oh my gosh, I can do this. I can go to parties when I want. I can wear what I want. All of that thing. I can go where I want, with who I want, when I want. No one to tell me what to do. All of that stuff, and then so much more.
Mhm. And I know you spoke about values and how I'm available. Most of us coaches are like, values are like key. Okay. And while they're key, they're also very viable and flexible on some level. As you change and evolve, your values change and evolve, like you were saying.
Mhm.
And it just hit me like, yeah, of course. And yet we beat ourselves up, or we try to keep going to the past. We're not there anymore. Our values have totally shifted. Not our core values, like we said, like we all have our core values, but like this new sense. And in like the work I do is like, what values does it actually take to get what you want?
Beautiful question.
Right? What values does it take to get what you want? And then can we cultivate those values and speak into those values, right? But yeah, so let's talk about that. To me, it's just, as you're speaking, I'm like, duh. I mean, like,
We forget because it's so unconscious, we don't even realize.
Yeah, like how we evolve, our values evolve, and if they're not, if it's not working in our life today, I think trying to go back to what we were 2 years ago or a year ago is going to be, you're going to stay in pain.
Yeah. Do you know what's coming through for me there is like with the values thing, us women, those of us who are really of like this feminine essence, which is depth, right? We go deep. Of course we go deep because our love runs so deep. Our power runs so deep. Our desires run so deep because they're part of who we are. And we're allowed to have all of them, by the way. Side note. And as you were speaking there about the values and how we change, what came through for me was that actually there's for sure that, but we're on a journey of the depth of those values as well. Right? So there's moving across, like say from 20 years old to 28, 29 years old, and how those core values remained, but some of the values slipped away. And it was a kind of a lateral or a side move. And choosing divorce meant those core values stayed intact. But actually, what was happening is I was then on a journey of the depth of those core values. Like, what does freedom really mean? What does courage really mean and feel like and look like? What does unbridled joy and happiness actually truly feel like? And so that's really what divorce opened up for me, actually. Like I said, I've never talked about this before, so it's a fascinating conversation for me to be expressing. And that was another thing, is that self-expression. Feminine energy wants to express itself.
Right.
And stepping into this world of life after divorce was, who am I now on my own 2 feet? And how exciting can life be? And how many miracles can I manifest with God? How many amazing things can I get up to? How much of a life can I live? Which, I can look back on and say, wow, I really made the most of each and every single moment because I was able to.
And it's hitting me because as you're talking about going deep with our values, like I have to say, like, our first definition of our values is probably the one given to us by other people.
Yes.
And it's not until we keep asking our questions and going deep that we get to define exactly what it means to us to have that value. And it doesn't have to be the same as Leila or Jennifer. We get to have our own, like, definition of what it
Yes.
means to have courage or be courageous, or yeah.
You know what was really fascinating there? So I think I used this word in one of my posts recently, and I was like, oh, this is cool. But I've just remembered it there about collective values.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the whole, one of the reasons why I stayed for longer than I wanted to, but was meant to, was because of these collective values, societal values, gender values. Gender really important as well. Like, what will other women think if I'm divorced? Will she see me as a sister of hers, or will she see me as separate from her? Because there are people in my world who I know want to be divorced and they're not, and they choose not to, and that's their choice. And so I became a reflection of what was possible for them, and they would never experience this side. And so there was these collective values, like, where did these values come from? Who said I can't get divorced? Who said I have to stay unhappy and miserable? Who said I have to put up with infidelity? Who said I have to put up with, being treated unfairly, badly, manipulated? Who said that that is who I am? And I never said that. I was never that person. And I've always had really strong values about how I deserve to be treated, and how I expect myself to treat others as well. And so, the collective values, societal, gender, religious, cultural, all of these ideas started to come through. And I got to the point where it was like, none of them matter. They don't matter. They really don't matter. What matters is my happiness, because I'm living my life for myself with other people. And if I'm living my life for myself with other people, then I expect the people around me to um to kind of share similar values, and to at least respect the values that I own and walk with. So that was really key there, collective values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you were speaking, this is all he's coming up to, is that, this idea that, I don't know, maybe is there this collective idea of women that it's okay to be miserable? It's okay, like, to have this,
Ooh.
is it, are we supposed to sacrifice our lives for others?
I
Are
think
we,
that's the
is
story we've
this,
been
yeah.
told.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah, as you're saying that, it's like somehow that programming is in us, that cage story of your life is supposed to be about other people. And if you're unhappy, well, that's just how it goes. That's
Mhm.
marriage. That's
Yeah.
that's life for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want that life. I that's not what I'm here for.
Hmm. Do you know, it's like there's so much sensitivity, energetically sensitivity around this. So we can easily take on, many of us, not everyone, of course,
Mhm.
but many of us can take on other people's views, opinions, limitations, ideas, stories, is all of that. Um, for what we perceive is the greater good, making ourselves unhappy, but making sure other people are happy. And we hear this oftentimes. Mothers will often do this. She'll take the burnt toast and give her child the good one. And she'll do that every morning if that's what happens, right? And it's that whole thing of like, okay, where does you value in yourself come in? At what point do you say I matter? At what point do you say this matters? And so, um that sensitivity around this is really saying, okay, your life has to be a choice, and you get to make that choice. You get to chip away at everything and anything that is not yours energetically. There's this whole thing of like, where have I given my power away? Who have I given my power away to? Say, for example, if somebody um asks for, I don't know, my brain comes up with some random examples. I'm like, this is so random. But like, if somebody asks for the last tin of beans on the shelf store, on the store shelf, and you've got to feed your children, will you give that away, or will you keep it for yourself? Like, what are you giving away? How are you giving away your power? How are you giving away your opinion? Okay, let's go into this one. So how are you giving away your opinion? It's this whole thing of like, people agreeing with each other in conversation, but actually they don't really agree. They just surface level saying, oh, yeah, 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 I agree. Yeah, I agree. But actually inside, you don't, and it goes against your values. It's that whole thing of like, where are you giving away your power to appease others or to please others? And so this comes back to finding out and discovering who you really are, and choosing yourself over and over again, like I said, chipping away at those collective values, because we don't have to walk with the collective values, meaning we don't have to believe what everyone else is believing when it goes against our core. Like, we are such beautiful, intuitive, sensitive, astute beings and women. And we've been given these, I call them divine gifts. We've been given them for a reason, to be used, right? And the moment we give it away a little bit, the moment we dismiss it or diminish it, or kind of, kind of put things over what really matters to us, then we lose our gift. We lose the power of that gift. And what we're wanting to do is to say, well, actually, who am I and where do I come in? And what does my life look like, and what can it look like, regardless of what others' expectations are?
Yeah. And I think the first thing we lose is our sense of laughter and happiness.
Yeah, we
You know
do.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that, just
yeah.
that, I mean, we've all been there, right? We're just like, we can't even laugh today, or like,
Exactly.
we can't even find joy in our life anymore.
And it's fascinating, because the whole point of being alive is feeling alive.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm so passionate about this because of my own experiences with death and dying, and all the things that have happened in my life. It's like, I am not supposed to be here, and of course I'm meant to be here because I am here. But my life could have taken a turn in so many different ways. And so there's just this deep appreciation and respect,
Mm-hmm.
for life and for being alive. And in that choice of wanting to feel alive, we get to choose our circle. We get to choose who we spend our time with. We don't have to follow the crowd. We don't have to follow cultural blueprints. We don't have to stay in the boxes that other people have put us in,
Mm-hmm.
to keep us away from being wild and free. And I know for myself, I will always choose the wild and free box. Not that it's a box, actually. Exactly. Both of us.
Like,
Yeah.
don't put baby in the corner.
Nah, no.
It's just gonna get worse. It's just gonna get worse. Okay.
Exactly.
So I know that you have a gift for our audience. You want to speak into that, and then
Yeah.
I know this
For
is
sure. Okay, so I have, so I'm the author of this book, 101 Plus Ways to Overcome Life's Biggest Obstacles. And this book is a guide on personal transformation, self-mastery, and really activating your own power. And I wrote this about 4 or 5 years after being divorced, and when I was just at the pinnacle and the height of my joy and freedom and alignment with my true self. And it's a really powerful book, and it's transforming lives. So I've got a free downloadable version for everybody that wants to sign up, and for your guests here tonight.
All right, beautiful. Well, thank you, Leila. As always, it's so great connecting with you. And everybody out there, go have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you.